Hey guys, so as I've been running the Occultist Anonymous game, I've seen some questions come up on Twitter, Discord comments, even amongst the Cabal, the players themselves, about what exactly Yantras are, how they're used, and I've also seen some misconceptions, and I also realized I've probably homebrewed a little stuff, so I kind of wanted to do a quick breakdown on what Yantras are and the way they work in the game mechanically. So, Yantras are things that you include in a spell that they're going to provide a buff, and these are things to help kind of reflect a mage's will in the environment and things that they're drawing on and going, see, yes, this represents a thing that I'm doing, and that's why I can pull this spell off. As a storyteller, I try not to get too caught up in what actually does that really. Do you really think that that baseball bat reflects a rod? We'll talk about that stuff here in a minute, but like, I leave it up to the players, and this is where with World of Darkness you kind of have to give it to the players that they know their characters and kind of trust them to play fairly. And besides, there's certain limits to how many yantras you can use anyways, so if they couldn't use that specific one, they probably could use another one anyways. So quick breakdown of the different ways and the bonuses that different yantras get you. So to start off, a domain gives you a 2-die bonus for spells that are tied to that prepared space. So this is where a mage has set up their particular sanctum, they've put up decorations, they've put in different tools that reflect their particular way of casting spells, and anything that is associated with that gets that 2-die bonus. Flat, easy, simple. A Verge gives a 2-die bonus for spells that use the ruling arcana, but not the inferior arcana of a particular supernal realm. So if you were Stygian Verge, you would get matter and death, but you wouldn't get spirit. And then on a lighter, easier note that doesn't require supernatural stuff, you can just call on a particular environment to get a 1-die bonus for casting in a appropriate location. So an Obrimos might go to a church to call down a 1-die bonus for something about sharing word or spreading things, but it wouldn't let them do like forces magic necessarily. Or a Moros might use a lab for alchemy related spells, but depending on the lab, probably won't do death stuff very well, right? Next, there are certain actions that a mage can take, and kind of going through these more or less alphabetically. They can concentrate on a spell. That gives a 2-die bonus as long as the spell has a duration longer than a turn, i.e. they actually can concentrate on it. But while concentrating, if the mage is hurt in any way or takes a non-reflexive action, so basically almost anything, the spell just ends right there. Next, you have mantras, which are basically chanting in high speech. This one is super straightforward. It gives you a 2-die bonus. It doesn't matter what you're casting, but it can never be used reflexively, so it can't be used immediately for an instant cast 1-turn spell. Now, of course, you could just take an extra turn, take 2 turns, and cast it. But it's always obvious, and it's never something that you can do subtly. So you're not going to whisper it, and you're not going to slip it casually into a conversation, right? And it does require the high speech merit, which most mages will get for free, but you might not have it necessarily. Next, you have rote mudras. These add a specific skill's rote skill mudra to the casting for up to a 5-die bonus based on what your mage's actual skill is. And a 6-1 is possible if it is also using one of the order's specialized rote skills. It does get you up to 6. That's not necessarily useful because a spell can only have up to a +5 total bonus on Yantra bonuses after removing penalties. So you might need to pick up some extra penalties so you can get the full use of that +6. Next, you have runes, and these are basically high speech made physical. These give you a 2-die bonus for runes that are placed on a subject. It requires the mage's ritual interval, time, duration, whatever, to actually create the runes, but that's not actually part of casting the spell, at least as I read the book. Now, I have house ruled that you could go ahead and make runes, and they don't necessarily need to be on the subject of the spell. Mostly because I like the idea of runes like flaring up as you cast some spell out there, or you thrust your hand forward and that tattoo or whatever that you have on your hand lashes out and throws a fireball or whatever, right? I think technically the way the book requires it is that whoever is receiving the spell has to have the particular runes on them. To the left, just to the side of taking certain actions, you also have tools, specifically path tools, which are the coin cup, mirror rod, and weapons. And they have to be made of a specific type, an appropriate type in accordance with your path. And this gives a 1 die bonus. And the tool that you're using has to by itself reflect the spell. Though it doesn't also have to be necessarily a special prepared wand or anything like that. So you could totally use a weapon for a damaging attack on somebody. You could also potentially use a weapon to represent slicing open a portal, right, to another dimension or something like that. It all depends on how you're using it. The book gives some pretty good examples, but it's up to your kind of own creativity. Next, you have order tools, and this is specifically for mages who have joined a specific order. So the Pentacle or even the Seers of the Throne, they use these. So nameless orders probably do not. Though take that up with your storyteller. Maybe they say you do have some specific order tools. But these represent what the orders do. These are certain tools that are tied to certain spells, at least in my opinion. Like Guardians of the Veil will use cloaks and masks to hide and reveal things. They could not use those same cloaks and masks to, prove their authority the way Silver Ladder do with symbols of authority. Or you wouldn't be able to necessarily use them the way adamantine arrows do for conflict, right? So while Seers use the same order tools that everybody else does, and the fact that they have them, they use certain words and stuff like that. Seers follow specific rules, and upon becoming a prelate can use these specific tools from their patron exarch based on the prelacy merit. Not going to dig into that. It just exists. They have certain rules and certain ways they can do things, right? Next, you have sympathy items. This is kind of your old school type. I have a lock of your hair, or I have a photo of you, or I have this object that you used to own, something like that. So if it reflects who the subject is currently, so a lock of their hair or something like that, or a recent photograph, basically nothing more than a month old, that gets you a 2 die bonus. If it's something that reflects what they used to be, like old kid photos and yearbook and stuff like that, that would be a 1 die bonus. If it just kind of symbolically represents them, like just even knowing their name, their real sympathetic name, gives you no die bonus, but can be used for sympathetic range casting. So yes, this is where you get into, you don't tell a wizard your real name because they can use it to cast on you if you're a space mage, at least. And of course, space mages, that's all they need, because when they're using that for sympathetic range casting, they don't get a die bonus. They forego that bonus in order to actually cast at that range. Next, you have sacraments, and this is kind of similar to the symbolic stuff, but this is going to be things that anything that you may destroy and obliterate to fuel the spell. If you put some thought and effort into, oh, this represents this thing and that's why it's going to do something, cool, that's a 1 die bonus. The example they give is, oh, you put special ritual herbs and spices into a loaf of bread, everybody's going to eat it, and that's going to give me a +1 die bonus to get everybody to get along because, you're all breaking bread together. Okay. If you did something that's a little bit more personal, required some actual effort by your mage rather than just going to the grocery store or picking some plants out of the garden, this would be a 2 die bonus. And then if you went to another place somewhere else, that would be a 3 die bonus for that particular sacrament. And then kind of, it doesn't really fit anywhere else, is the persona. And this is specifically how you use the shadow name and cabal theme merits. Basically, when you're casting in accordance with the shadow name persona that you have developed, and as a mage, the way you make others view you by the particular attire that you wear, the way that you talk, the name that you've taken, anything like that, if it factors into that person, you can use your shadow name to give a 3 die bonus, and then if it also ties into your cabal and what your cabal represents, then that would be a die bonus all the way up to a +4. The cabal fame is just a +1 on top of whatever shadow name merit you have. And then finally, you have your dedicated magical tool. This is something that has a close connection to your mage, or rather, I guess your mage has a close connection to it. It can be used as a path or order tool, so long as it applies appropriately, same way we were talking about before. But whether, and that would give a 1 die bonus. But even if it doesn't give that 1 die bonus, congratulations, you still have a penalty on the paradox dice pool of 2, or another way to put that, there's a -2 on the paradox dice pool, which paradox dice, it's just like any other die pool. If it's reduced to 0 or below, technically it's still, you still have a chance to get paradox. You still have a chance die, so on a 10 it actually provokes paradox, but if you get a 1 on that chance die, you actually get some cool stuff. It actually happened in one of our recent games, so you can go check that out. And that is Yantras in a quick minute, hopefully under 15 or so. Just about. So there you go. That's a quick breakdown on what Yantras are, how to use them, and hopefully give you a little bit of guidelines for what to look for when casting your next spell in Mage the Awakening 2nd edition. Thanks, guys. We'll see you around.